Welcome you all. Welcome to Absent Archives. Very excited to have everyone here. I think what is Absent Archives really, right? I mean, it's kind of self-explanatory. But I would like to reiterate that this is a network. It's a platform that brings together memory workers, artists, researchers, and practitioners to sit with a shared question: are histories shaped only by what is documented, or rather by what remains unspoken, unrecorded, or withheld? Or perhaps both? We formally launched Absent Archives last June, but this is something I've been thinking about for a long time. At its core, Absent Archives asks this question: can inter-silence itself be a form of history? Because here, absence is not understood as lack. It is something that exists in the in-between, between images, documents, narratives, and so much more. A space where meaning is not always immediately visible, but still carries weight. And this is really where this platform begins, with the attempt to think of absence not just as gap, but as a form, as material, as point of departure. Absent Archives has, in some ways, grown out of our ongoing work through Archival Matter, where we've been engaging with histories that are often fragmented or difficult to access. What that work has made clear to me is that absence is not occasional, it is structural, and that we don't always have the tools or even the permission to fully resolve it. But this is not an experience I hold alone, and I think so many of us here today have experienced this in different ways. This gathering comes from a desire to stay with that condition a little longer, to think through it together, to learn from one another, and to allow absence to tell us something about what lies beyond the obvious. For this edition, we turn to photography. Hi, so many photographers. Photography has long been tied to ideas of evidence and truth. But what we are interested in here is not only what the image shows, but what exceeds it. What's left outside the frame, what is edited out, what was never allowed to be seen. What does it mean to read images through their absences? What does it mean to work with photographic archives that are themselves incomplete or unstable? In the foreword to the accompanying book, I write this sense of instability, and every single essay in the book echoes this. The book is available outside. That images often appear complete, but carry within them something unresolved. Histories of displacement, omissions, or quiet erasures that sit just beneath the surface. Absent Archives does not try to resolve this, it stays with it. Before we formally begin, I would like to thank Photo South Asia for their generous support to make this event a reality, and for their sustained commitment to photography in the region. And thank you so much, Archila and Chaitali especially, for hosting this and for making this gathering a possibility. Over the next 3 days, this is a space for thinking together, for sitting with complexity, for resisting easy answers, and for asking what it means to work with absence without immediately trying to fill it. If this platform does anything, I hope it encourages us to think more deliberately through the lens of absence, to recognize it, to work with it, and to take it seriously as a way of engaging with history. The conversation, of course, cannot end here, so let's find ways of staying in the question together. And with that, I want to invite our first panel, Ocean as an Invisible Archive. So this conversation brings together Amarnath Praful, Akshay Mahajan, the Tandel Fund of Archives, which is represented by Kadambari, Koli, and Parag Tandel, to reflect on the ocean as an invisible archive. Amarnath will be moderating the conversation. He is an interdisciplinary practitioner and educator. Many of you here know him. Currently, he is faculty member of the master's program of photography design at NID. Titled Ocean as an Invisible Archive, the conversation draws on shared concerns around photography, labor, and community memory, situating the ocean as a space that holds histories even as it obscures and erases them. So without further ado, Omar, would you come and introduce the panel? let's start the conversation.
Thanks, Alakananda. It's so lovely to be here. Morning. I think I'm going to start and do the honors of introducing the panel members. And I have a small introductory note for the panel. And then we will listen to the three of them presenting their work. And then we'll open up to have the conversation, which is why we're all here, I guess. So I'm joined here by Parag, Kadambari, and Akshay. Parag Tandel is a Mumbai-based artist and visual auto-ethnographer with a postgraduate diploma in creative sculpture from MSU Baroda and a diploma in sculpture and modeling from JJ School of Art, Bombay. Recently, Parag was part of a month-long residency at ZKM Karlsruhe, Germany, where he developed works in response to space, shown as part of ZKM's exhibition, Assembling Grounds, Practices of Coexistence. He has also presented his work as part of Meta Prakriti at the Sao Paulo Bienal in Brazil, and participated in residencies in Taiwan. Recently, one of his outdoor installations, titled How to Cook Bombay Duck in Various Ways, was featured in the art fair. And another installation of Parag's has been featured in Art Basel, Hong Kong. Welcome, Parag. Really looking forward to listening to you. Kadambari, welcome to the panel. Kadambari Koli Tandel is a Bombay-based visual artist and cultural anthropologist, and holds a master's degree in visual arts. Her practice centers on Koli culture and the ecological systems shaping Mumbai's fishing communities. Through research-driven community-based methodologies, she documents and interprets the lived experience, material culture, indigenous knowledge systems, and immediate ecosystems of the Koli people, the original inhabitants of Mumbai's 7 islands. Bridging artistic inquiry with ethnographic research, her work reflects a sustained engagement with creative expression and research methodology. Together, they are representing Tandel Fund of Archives, which is a socially engaged archives and ethnographic pop-up museum of the Koli, the indigenous fishing tribe who are original inhabitants of Mumbai. A pool of archives is currently documenting sustainable knowledge regarding the ocean and biophilic practices of Koli tribe in and around Mumbai. Tandel Fund in Chendani, Koliwada, Thane was founded in the 14th century to support Koli people financially when elders were out on the ocean for the seafaring business. The fund was resumed as Tandel Fund of Archives in 2019 by Kadambari and Parag, artists and visual ethnographers of the Koli tribes of Mumbai. Lastly, but not least, we have Akshay. Akshay Mahajan is an artist, writer, and curator whose work engages photography as an archival and methodological practice. His work has been exhibited at the 13th Bamako Encounters, Cairo Biennale, Photo Festival Lords, Athens Photo Festival, etc. Mahajan is also the winner of Neradi Verakraza Prize and was named Foam Talent in 23-24. Apart from his photographic practice, he co-curates GoaPhoto and Familia, an evolving archive of Goan family histories. Welcome, Akshay. Yeah. I must say it's such a pleasure to be sitting literally in between these three. And the lead up to it, which Absent Archives organized, has been really nourishing whenever we met on phone calls, or it's been really, the conversation has been fantastic. So I also think in a really oceanic sense that it is a continuum, and this event is not a secluded sort of entity. Before we hear from all three, I would like to premise a rather open, short set of questions, really, which I've been thinking aloud when thinking with the ocean. And I'm also responding to the very poetic title that Alakananda put forward, called Ocean as an Invisible Archive, which is sort of teeming with possibilities. Mm, In his introductory text, Wet Ontologies, Philip Steinberg points out the obvious. Since we live on land and are usually beyond the sight of the sea, it is easy to forget that our world is an ocean world. Geographically, it's not the exception, but rather the greatest defining feature of our planet. We have been prone to think through terrestrial imaginations with the oceans on the margins of our thought. What does this mean, perhaps, to inverse this? What does thinking with the ocean entail? This is perhaps a pertinent undercurrent that will run through today's panel. Thinking with the ocean could be an amphibious approach and perspective in which the lives of land and oceans are connected. It really calls for a radical and just re-articulation of many histories which has been anxiously charted through terrestrial and cartographic imaginations, rigidities of land, borders, and acquisitions. This could be an approach that destabilizes static, bordered, and linear framings that typify geographical studies of place, territory, and time, and ultimately the archival corpus. This approach also diffuses and blurs historical imaginations hoisted on the premise and infrastructure of the nation state, a model which we know today, which is largely an 18th century invention. It essentially deterritorializes, destabilizes ideas of direction, periphery, center, boundary, terrestriality, and terrain. In essence, challenging territory as political technology. One should also perhaps remind ourselves that movement is not subsequent to geography, but rather it is the foundation of geography, that the world is constituted by mobility. Thinking with the ocean is also to think through, especially in the practices that will be presented here, with various materialities which can never be separated from either the experience of the ocean or the meaning that we attach to oceanic experiences. I'm going back to Ocean as an Invisible Archive and pondering a bit on that title. One thinks of the ocean world as the invisible world precisely because it challenges the horizon and extent of visibility itself. The terra incognita of the ocean, the vertical depth, the subterranean of the ocean reminds us of the potential weight of the invisible, the unknown, which is a prerequisite to understand and engage with the visible. One could argue that the ontology of the archival corpus, or the archive itself, holds this immensity of the invisible, of the incomprehensibility of the unseen. The missing remains, which is not the indexical, which leads us to the archive. Oceanic narratives often concerns themselves with visions of horizons, view of endlessness, the seafarer's vision of the shore, chimeras, and seasick apparitions. Oceanic voyage historically made visions from a previously disconnected world possible all over the world. When and how does the ocean become visible and, in extension, legible, tactile, and audible? The ocean visibilizes itself in the practices through various modalities. The ocean becomes perhaps subject, materiality, method, and effect. The pertinent questions that emerge for me are, what does it mean to constitute an archipelagic, estuarial, or a littoral archive? How are the artistic methodologies responding to community lives and experiences which are mandated by the ocean? There is emerging scholarship within ocean humanities that attest themselves to Indian, Atlantic, and Pacific Ocean distinctions. There are also scholarships that dislodge themselves, reject the cartographic division of ocean as these divided territories, but offer a more undivided, unified perspective that ocean is a continuum and not to be contextualized within these divisions. Often it is the history of imagination, migration, labor, and travel that dispel and reimagines oceanic thought. In the oceanic maritime, appearance holds the fort as much as the origin. Constant flux as opposed to sedimentation. continuity, persistence, circulation, all comes to the foreground. So this is my small open sort of note, which perhaps is in the atmosphere of these practices that we will hear about and see. We will start with Kadambari. Yeah, over to you.
Yeah, hello, good morning. To start with, just now Amarnath said about the Tandel Fund of Archives. So what does Tandel mean? Tandels are the captain of the ship. Firstly, I would like to put that forward. And we have revived this particular archive from a 14th century fund that was started by the Tandels of the Chendani Koivada to support the women or people who were on land when they were at sea. Okay, so I start with. So when we started thinking about the archive, long before we started thinking about the archive, who are the ones who record the history, or who are the ones who contribute to the archive in that matter? So, and how relevant do you think is the information given by these people who are contributing to the archive? So these are the different factors that we thought about, who are already contributing to archives in different ways. Then we thought about the knowers. Now, who are the knowers? Are the very people who are living actually that life. So those are the ones who can actually give us the archival project more appropriately. That is what we talked about. And we thought of indigenous knowledge systems, then lived experience of the Kolis, the community itself, as well as having conversations with people and found out objects right from the community. So we have been looking into these aspects instead of just basing our archive on other research practices. This all started with gathering of images from the community, where it's not only, it's more about storytelling. When you look at a photograph, it's more about stories that are revealed from the person, from the community. So we've started our archive project by gathering pictures from the community itself. So the different facets of the community are revealed from these particular photographs, if you see. This particular slide I've taken especially because it's light from 1950s to 2002. And we as Kolis are experience a lot of...
While we wait, can I ask a question?
Yes.
In your second slide, the photograph of a bride, there's a photo album, and the last image, the boy's face was scratched out.
So,
is there a story behind
yes, that's what I said. There are stories behind every photograph that we have documented. That particular son was a stepson of that particular mother, and he didn't want it to be belong to the family. So that's the reason he had scratched one of the internal fights that they had. They just scratched that photograph of his and that is how the photograph is there with the family. So we have a lot of stories that we get to hear from the different families, and it happens to be first-hand information, right, from the people that we interact with. And we have a lot of stories and narratives or imagery that we gather during our conversations. It also happens at times that they want to share more about their personal histories also. During these times, we understand the different details, which are missed during certain conversations. And that also are being recorded in some or the other way. Sometimes we take videos, or sometimes we ask them to write down certain things. So there isn't any other, the direct conversation or the direct information is being passed on to us. So this particular slide has been put. The community is going through a lot of problems at present due to different aspects like climate change and the local entities getting into the Kolivadas and wanting the prime properties and everything. So this is during 1950s, this was the stage, and in 2022, this is the stage that we are in. So why did we came up with pop-up museums, and we started a pop-up museum by the Tandel Fund of Archives. And we are thinking of developing a sustainable museum, which is self-funded, and we have an in-house production itself. Yeah? So these are the key factors that we think about when we are actually running the archive. We need to be resourceful at times and be risk takers, because everybody is not willing to contribute at some times because of the changing times and the changing scenarios in Mumbai at present. Yeah, so this is what we think about. So we do engage people from the community so that the material becomes more relevant. And we use local fee spaces called the Walwan, okay, where the fishermen go, and the space is for drying fish. So we use that very space for the pop-up museums. So we don't look for white cube spaces, but more of a public space where we can, put up our museum. So this was one particular project that we started. So Parag had initiated the project, where dried fish recipes were revived. There was one particular dry fish recipe which was not known by any, but only one woman in this group. So only she knew the recipe, and we could revive that recipe. And we also did some mummification project during this. So this is how people come together, and we get exchange of ideas, stories. These are the found objects from the creek that we live beside, the Chendani Creek, which is in Thane. So we call artists as well as people, local people from the community, so that we can have interactions between the people. This was one other from Vitava Kolivada. The same recipe competition. Again, there are different recipes that we could record from different Kolivadas. We also had children workshop on aquaponics. Now this is one project. We started gathering the words. Koli language, there is no dictionary. Yeah, so this particular slide which you all just saw, we actually started reviving the language. So people from our Kolivada, the Chendani, where the first train started from in the whole of India, in Asia. So the first train started from our Kolivada. Our Kolivada was divided into two because of the train that came in. So it became East and West Chendani. So due to that, we lost our language because people started commuting to Mumbai and the jobs changed, right? So the language was gone slowly, while as other Kolivadas still speak the language. So that is the reason our Kolivada has lost the language. So we are trying to revive the language, and this was the first project where people started communicating and giving us words. We told people to write down words during one of the pop-up museums. So they started contributing with words that they knew, and because their grandparents used to talk with them, so we had those words with us, and eventually the fishermen started getting objects also. So we found different objects, and they started naming that, and the younger generation which came for the pop-up museum got to know different words that are related to the occupation. So this was the first cycle that we started with one of the photographers of Chendani Kolivada, and he was a marriage photographer initially, and due to which a lot of cultural and ritual practices could be recorded. So the family members tried to contribute to the archive. This was the second cycle where we also started, So if you see, all has been recorded by the people itself. So we have not intervened into their practice. So we had words written, we had poems written or songs written. Since Koli culture is well known for Koli songs. So we got a lot of songs that were recorded. So before Koli songs became famous, Dhavlarin was one of the person from the Kolivada who used to solemnize all the marriages. So we didn't have Brahminical practices before. So these are the images that you see from different weddings, after which the men started singing in famous songs. But initially, the Dhavlarin was the one who used to solemnize all the practices, and we have done one book of hers. So we do online publications and symposiums where we again get narratives, we get information right from the people itself. So again, food as an archaeological site. Parag had done one project with Sunaparanta, Goa during the COVID. So different recipes were recorded again by his mother and him. This is this is again our archive of blouse stacks. So there was the story about blouse stack and the invasion. So how the stories are revived in that way through art practices. This was again one exhibition which was an 8-week-long process, and images and imagery as well as information was gathered from different Kolivadas all in around Mumbai, and in Mumbai has around about more than 240 Kolivadas. So a lot of information could be gathered. This is one project done with the Gothe, Journey of a Bombay Duck. So this was the initial idea, how it started with. And here again, the women of the Kolaba Kolivada made new songs, and we also documented their recipes. Yeah, this was particularly done at the Prince of Wales Museum in the ocean section. And as I said, that we culminated all the words and formed a dictionary last 2025. So we made the first Koli language dictionary last year, which was again, a contribution, great contribution from all the people from the community. So this is how we go about for the outreach program and all, and how we try to put up the community on a platform where, you get to know ideas and, the ancient knowledge that we have. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kadambari. I'm sure it opens up a lot of questions for us and a lot of lot to chew on. I think we will continue the conversation through Parag. Parag, over to you.
Kadambari has already spoke about most of the things. But new museum is coming of this performance called Bharali. And reason we'll go now to the Edward Gleason's archipelagic thinking. We'll go to the Edward Gleason's archipelagic thinking ways or his notes. Reason this performance is done is for, means it's this armature you see, it's in our village, but each village has a different armature. But we have a permanent one now. But in other villages, they make every year they make new armature, and the performance is in September, and it is decorated with forest flowers, but new flowers are also coming. And I'll tell you in a minute why I bought this. So, and we have collected lots of archives of this, and it's a socially engaged, means TFA is a socially engaged archive. And so it is done because people who have lost their lives on the ocean, and to protect children. So there is small story which is always told in all the 250 villages, that don't go near water, otherwise the ghost will come who will cut your neck. So this is always, these narratives grow around the environment, or it's kind of a different way of thinking from way Koli sees land from the ocean, which is crucial for my practice, or which is crucial for TFA's practice. So I saw lots of migration, and then Kolis are constantly in, Koli culture is in constantly flux. First Brahmin came, who named us Koli. Koli means spider in Marathi. When Marathas came, they started calling us Koli. So that from there the Koli word came. But now the Koli word is dissected since the Constitution of India was built up and that thing. But so blue color, green color, I don't have to explain the power politics behind the colors. But I was more interested in do my people can understand my art. So I usually take something which is very daily life forms which Koli people know, so they can understand my art, which is very much important for my practice. So this, and then Siddharth Bhatia, the founder of, co-founder of Wire, asked me to draw some drawings. I was drawing, but he asked me to draw some. He was writing an article on Coastal Road, and then he asked me, you have drawing of it? I'll draw some. And these are the maps of the Coastal Road. And then I came across different marine organisms, and then this form changed, and this is very large drawing. This is kind of sketchbook I keep in my studio. It's kind of large, 85 by 50 by 7 feet, more than 7 by 4 or something. I keep on adding my ideas, way it comes, and then you'll see later. But later Bharali developed into different form, and then these Talisman for Coastal Future series came up. I make these in thread because I don't want it to be indirectly in as a fishing net, because earlier our fishing nets were made out of cotton, jute and hemp, which now is in nylon. But earlier the yarn was made by children and elders used to make not the fishing nets. So this was resonating with my process. So I explored a lot. Like it's been like since 2019 I'm doing, but I did earlier also, but I keep on taking breaks in between. So I was called because of the cyanotype, which is historical photographic technique by Alakananda. So I came to this cyanotype thing for some reasons, but these works you see, I draw first. I draw it with ink, and then I'll explain you why I am doing cyanotypes. So in fishing, sun is very integral medium. So when sun arrives, plankton comes, then fish come, and then we know the large fish come, and there is activity in the ocean around the shore, and then we start fishing. This is kind of process I like, and I was in ZKM for residency, and we were working in a lab. So they had made one film. I did one project on flower. I haven't added because we have less time, but they did one film on flowers, and it's kind of an experimental museum. Like there is a lab which is very experimental, and he documented on analog 16 mm film camera. And then I saw that way they are cleaning. So they used flowers and leaves and plants and herbs to clean the film. And it was very interesting. I have the film, but we have less time. So here also what happens is, then I got an idea that why I have to do cyanotypes, because it is resonating with my practice. First I do drawing, then negative. And sun is very integral part of cyanotype. And then came recipes, and I have missed, visually this is not right slide, but I tried to explain you. So now I also use Photoshop to overlap, but I draw, and I don't show drawings. Right. I'm not showing drawings since long, since these cyanotypes have arrived in my practice. So, but thanks to Siddharth for bringing me closer to shore more, and also explaining me politics around the shore. So it takes a lot of time to draw. I think a lot. It's kind of takes 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, sometimes years, 2 years. Thank you.
Really incredible drawings, and again, a lot of material for us to think through. I want all of us to be prepared with questions or any queries that you have. But we will hear from Akshay now.
Why would a house in Alona choose to remember itself with a ship? The SS Britannia seems more than just a decoration. Clue, perhaps? Bit of the ocean settling into the everyday like sand, into architecture, into a threshold, into village life. And the ship is not alone. Once you start looking, you see these little archives everywhere. Around my house in Bodier, there are lions and soldiers. It's my favorite Cubist line. It guards, it poses, it overstates itself. Or perhaps it makes my neighbor feel at home at its site. The soldier suggests a kind of other inheritance, that someone from this house has gone to war across the oceans and perhaps only returned as a memory. And once you start start beginning to notice this stuff, it starts showing up everywhere. For example, this is a 19th century plague album in the Welcome collection, and perhaps the same cross, in Bandra and Shirley Rajan Road. And this is where I come to my first proposition. The archive is often embarrassingly public, and it sits outside and is usually ignored. And as a photographer, you keep coming face to face with these little anachronisms, and you should notice them. When Lola, who's in the audience, asked me to co-curate GoaPhoto in 2019, what interested me here was not simply placing photography in the village, but making a home for it. And in Aldona, through Familia is the exhibition, family photographs, oral histories, and other local material was gathered from Aldona and then returned to Aldona through an exhibition. A kind of circular exercise, which I later used with Lena Vincent in Goa Familia. She's going to be in another panel. You should listen to her as well. And during this time, one of the discoveries I made was the research of journalist Melvin Mesquita, who, through his own odyssey, was looking into a dead family member who died on board the SS Britannia. And that's the same ship on that gate in a house not so far from here. It is the entrance to the house of the late Albino de Souza, who was one of the survivors of the ill-fated SS Britannia. So the archive is already there. It's been spatialized in the village before it even enters the exhibition. It is there in the house. It is there again in the Tinto in Aldona at the bus stand, behind the pork shop, which is dedicated to Mr. and Mrs. de Souza, a village square we will come back to later in the presentation. And it has entered the salon of the 400-year-old Dasar house, where the village hopefully came face to face with its own history. And we ended with a kantar, a song, sung again in the village, carrying this sort of suspended moment when Aldona thought its sons were gone. And that, for me, was really the thing of this exhibition. The archive did not remain on display, it returned as a voice. From there, we traveled to Sibari, on the southern coast of Italy, the heel of the boot, where I heard this story about black rice. And it had supposedly been rediscovered on the floodplains of an ancient Greek city. And the seed was just growing in the ruin, carrying another geography. And some said, after genetic testing, that it came from the plains of the Indus, like I did, perhaps in the wake of Alexander. And it lay dormant for years, waiting to be noticed. The seed as archive, one that can give you nourishment. The work that was born out of this interaction is something called Archivio del Invisibile, which emerged at this residency called In Ruins, which is a sort of meeting point between art and archaeology. And what interested me here was not the museum, the ruin, or the excavated object. They seemed very obvious. It was how everything that gathered around the object and disappeared from view. It's the hands that dug it, cleaned it, sorted it, handled it, reassembled it, but were forgotten. And then there was the harder question, what about the village? What about the people who lived beside these sites for generations, long before a visiting archaeologist arrives to dig, name, and interpret? I wanted the people of Amendolara, the village, to reshape the archive. Residents were invited to sift through and sort and categorize and reassemble the materials themselves to make another archive, not the official one, a parallel one. paper museum that mimics the actual archive in form. The archive need not be an expensive filing cabinet in a temperature-controlled room. It can be what we thought was a weed growing in the ground, just waiting for closer examination. Here's another seed from another project. This is the Rajbanshi Man, played from the colonial album, The People of India. And what strikes me here is how quickly life is made to stand still, a face, a body, reduced to just type, caption, plate. Photography here is not opening itself to the complexity we love about it. It's flattening, it's simplifying. A person is a page, a culture is an entry, and the album is meant to be carried in the belly of a ship, simplified across the ocean to the imperial center. That, for me, is part of the violence of the colonial archive. It doesn't record difference. It fixes bias, the Occidental versus the Oriental. That thing plays out still in our present. And through People of Clay, I began complicating it through a kind of methodology which I like to think of as radical citation. By what I mean is refusing the kind of authority of a single source, letting different registers sit beside each other, not being bullied by one clean narrative. The colonial album could be one citation, but so could a folk song, so can a clay figure, a recipe, a family anecdote, so can a shrine, a broken monument, a photograph taken now, an image inherited from elsewhere. So if the people of India turns people into a type, my hope for People of Clay is to return them to relation. And finally, to my hometown, with this image from "To die is to be turned to gold." This is the sculptor's assistant at Wag's Sculptures, and he's surrounded by a kind of archive of markets and public memory, the enlightened Baba Sahib Ambedkar with statesmen and hateful fascists. For me, this workshop is already a kind of archive of nationalism, a space where post-colonial history is being made in 3 dimensions. And that's where the title opens out for me. Sonapur, the city of gold, one of the many names for Bombay or Mumbai or many other such names, or the Good Bay. The project frames the city as through the eyes of a young sculptor of commercial statues, and in a place where generations have come for fortune and may have died in that pursuit and turned to gold if the folklore is believed. A city that runs on this folklore, and the hunger is insatiable. It keeps casting memory into metal. It keeps deciding who will stand for history and who will disappear into its foundations. And here, as promised, we return to the Aldona Tinto, because the loop closes here. It's the memory of the SS Britannia, of Albino de Souza, of maritime survival, of village remembrance, returning again in public form also as a sculpture. The statue of Edward J. Soares at the Tinto, cast in gunmetal at Wag Sculptors. And that, finally, is what interests me about the archive. Not only what gets remembered, but how remembrance is manufactured, circulated, and installed. So who gets turned into gold and who is left in the ground?
Thank you, Akshay, Kadambari, and Parag. I'm sure all of you share maybe sentiments that a lot of pores have been opened up, sort of overlapping waves of ideas, connections which are unmissable between these practices. I have 2 questions, actually. One is I think I'll forward sort of the conversation where you left off, Akshay. and also from Parag's and Kadambari's, that what is so obvious is that various grammars, poetics, articulations overlap and participate, combine and metamorphosize together, coalesce together from what one may call pre-colonial, colonial and post-colonial histories. And in all of your practices, it seems like going beyond it is not the destination, but rather the starting point, which is something that I think deeply resonates with what the panel is trying to propose together as in terms of Oceanic Archive. So any notations on that? Because I was also thinking of you citing as a photographer remnants of the ocean, you know, the apparition of the ship coming in, or let's say this flower arrangement transforming into sculptural pieces, or a photograph that was taken of the mothers becoming something else altogether. So maybe you could do a very quick round of however you want to respond to that. Yeah.
One of the things I got struck by while listening to both Kadambari and Parag was kind of rootedness and rootlessness. And the two key metaphors for me was one's division by the, train line, the Urb Indus Primus, VT to Thane. And then it came back to Parag with the coastal road, and which made me think that I guess the Kolis are still kind of colonized, right? They're last to be thought of in these grand projects that we think of as development. And they're only, and at those points, so it's kind of ecological, they're always the first to encounter the ocean in that way. And that's why I thought the flower arrangements was interesting, the transformation of material between the yarn, the hem, to this nylon, and it kind of getting into, if you go to the mangrove, you see these nets that get into everywhere, you get entangled, this sort of entanglement. And I like to think of the archive in that it's kind of entanglement. It's everywhere, and it's so difficult to unravel that you have to transform it into something which gives you a kind of rootedness, which I really like about both the TFA and Parag's work. And it gave me a lot to think about. I don't know if that answers your question. I was just trying to digest what I saw, that's all.
What you asked about and what I would just like to say is about the recipes that are going. Definitely the homage is also one part. But the recipes also go as homages at times, because we have different rituals in which different recipes are made. And we offer them to those entities whenever we worship those. So they are all, natural entities. And that is what I feel, is very important when we documented the recipes also, that different ritualistic practices have different recipes that are being offered to. Yeah.
So the question is very broad, and but our art practice, like I'm talking about TFA and my practice also, they emerge from local cultural emergency and intelligence. That's what I feel. And what Kadambari showed is kind of protest museum and protest archives against the city, because Amar actually asked me to bring this, especially because, what happened is that in 2019, I was working, we were working on Koli community and all, but thing was that in 2019, most of the villages where Koliwadas were declared slums, because slums were developed around them, but they don't understand that these are the ancient villages. And after that, my cousins and we all group, we started protesting, and they were troubled a lot. Like we were not in the deep protest, which was direct protest, but one day we were connected to WhatsApp group, and Kadambari was very angry. He was sleeping in our bed, and we used to talk. And I am like, I don't want to talk when I'm sleeping. Like we start sleep because then it moves around, and in morning also it starts moving. And she like said that I want to kill somebody. You know? So, and we in 2019 both were reading Harry Potter series. We were mad, like, and we were ready reading for some other reasons, but it was my third time we read, and there is one scene in, it's kind of funny thing, but I like the idea of killing. Tom and Voldemort and Dumbledore were fighting, and Tom says, I want to kill, I will kill everybody. But Dumbledore says that you don't have to kill. There are ways to kill. And I told her that this idea sounds very good, and we discussed. So let's kill in a different way, because all our data was like changed, that these people are not from here, and these things and that, blah, blah, blah. All manipulations were there in the documents. And let's start documenting from our decolonized indigenous perspective, which was very important for us. And that led to this larger, it's growing larger, and it's going like more in everywhere it's going like now. But we started as small, but I felt that if she wouldn't have thought about killing, and then, but I think protest has different ways, and we should do all these things. We should, these kinds of projects, these kinds of ideas are important, because I don't have to say much.
Yeah, I think Harry Potter is the correct answer to my question. No, just to maybe sort of sum up this trail, I was particularly touched by this moment in that presentation when the Koli women went back to the Prince of Wales Museum. You know? And there is also a resonance to what Akshay showed, the Rajabangshi ethnographic portrait by William and K. Forbes and K. Of the Rajabangshi, because Kolis were also these kind of totemic, repetitive subjects used to exercise ethnographic portraiture. And very interestingly, a lot of people who were actually, a lot of photographers who were of Indian origin also photographed similarly for Bombay Photographic Society and all that. So I think there is some, there is definitely a very strong invisible thread, or perhaps a visible thread, that goes through and displaces that linearity of practices, logics, grammar in all of these practices.
It's interesting that you brought up the Rajbanshi man, because the access to that work was not that plate. It was literally Mrig, my then girlfriend, now wife, singing to herself. And it was a folk song in Gwalparia, then that folk song became a kind of seed for these people who were displaced between these colonial borders. And here where, the kind of Brahmaputra bends, the kind of inland sea, and how collecting these folk songs were done by Mrig's grand aunt, and singing them became a kind of archive by itself, and kind of revitalize the identity through it. So very similar to, let's say, what Parag and Kadambari are doing, that these little cultural social markers, the words and the gathering words, singing songs, recipes, those are more valuable citations, which we sometimes folklore. These practices which we sometimes demonize as superstition, they have so much more value than what is being taught to us, and that is also a kind of decolonization.
See, we are artists, and we can think creatively. And I feel I love to think creatively, anything, like, and going out of the box and doing things. all the time. It takes time because it takes like some people have shaped my practice, or these kind of projects now we are in Absent Archive will shape my practice, or what he has shown, Akshay has shown. We are just absorbing and we are reshaping or rethinking about all things.
Absolutely. I think that we are in practice. So with that note, I think I would want to open up very quickly to questions that any of you may have.
I'm curious about the larger Koli community. I know your work, at least from what I saw, is very Bombay-centric and maybe around. But isn't the indigenous community much larger? And where does it all go up and down the coast from Bombay? Plus, what is the government status you have as being indigenous people? Is it like, are you given the STSC category kind of thing, or where do you stand?
So first, the first question about the Kolivadas, only Mumbai has more than 240 Kolivadas, which are still, some of them are still existing, and some have been displaced because of different aspects or projects that are coming by the government. In the larger picture, you can see the Worli sea coast is being, it's not yet displaced, but there are different measures being taken so that no fishing is happening anymore in that extent that it used to happen before. So the government thing that you were asking is SCST. Definitely we have a part in it, but the shore is being captured some way by the government entities, we can say. And the other thing, there are more Kolivadas apart from Mumbai. The entire coast till the Konkan coast, they have different hamlets, we can say. Small Kolivadas are definitely there. Yeah, the government entities are entering slowly into the periphery of the land and the ocean, I can say. Not the Kolivadas, but the land and the ocean. And ultimately, the Kolivadas are getting affected because we are part of, that's our livelihood, right? So you can't just take the ocean out of a Kolivada. Yeah, it's that way. Yeah.
So we were ST earlier, scheduled tribe, but for land politics and our properties are sea facing, so they changed our caste to SBC now, which is Maharashtra state itself has developed one caste thing. It's not sent from central, but they have come up with the SBC, special backward class. So that's all. And the other question was like, there are like Alibag and there are more Kolivadas, and they are not near the city, because as we are, like Chindini Kolivada, which was ancient port. But if you go just 2 kilometers, they are speaking language. Just 2 kilometers I'm speaking. So this like they depend. It depends like what government is like. It's big. I have to stop.
Yeah.
Parag, in the Bombay region especially, Kolis are both Catholic and Hindu. And sometimes they actually live in different parts of the same Kolivada. From the objects you've shown, I'm seeing mainly the Hindu sort of rituals being collected in the archive. What are the challenges? Are you facing any challenges of incorporating both practices into your collection?
Good question, actually. Problem is that being an artist, I can see through. That was very crucial for both of us. We discuss all the time. If you see Bharali, there is overlaid Hindu Chaturthi on same day. But we had a different, we have our calendar. So when Marathas came, the Hinduism was overlaid on us, and this practice, they also celebrate Chaturthi and they also celebrate Bharali. But there are some villages who still do Bharali only. And these challenges we can see because we have grown up and we have lived this since childhood. We are seeing this. But it is happening everywhere. Like I was in Bastar, like Pablo said about indigenous people are everywhere. So I'm collaborating with, I have collaborated one project with Madia tribe in Bastar. Also I did one project. So there still, if you talk about food, oil is not there. They still don't eat oil, use oil in food. Like, there is lot I can talk, but
yeah, I think the conversation is leaky. It will maybe one final question in this setting.
Thank you. It's a question for Akshay. I was quite struck by when you spoke that you're not so much fascinated by the ruin and the excavated thing itself, but by the hands that have done the excavation and the people who have been living around that place for maybe hundreds and thousands of years. So I was very curious to know that how is it that you bring that aspect into your archive, into your work? And I asked this question because recently I saw a film, Gianfranco Rosi film called Clouds, where he spent gorgeous 5 minutes looking at hands doing the excavation in Rome. So I was just curious, how is it that you bring these hands and these voices into your work?
I mean, I went to this sort of ruin initially, and it was recently found in the 60s by the Americans who were using this archaeological site as a way to test experimental military technology like ground penetrating radar and things like that. And they found this site through this technique. And this site did not want to be found. It was a marsh. And then they installed 6 water pumps. And so it's basically this is an archaeological site on life support. It's like pump, all you hear is water pumps, like pump, 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 pump. And then they use agricultural labor because the Americans came and the French came and the Germans came, which makes you realize that museumography and the history of archaeology, if you look at it, is an imperial process of nation building, their nation building. You know, the creation of the idea of the West at the cost of Greece, which probably looks east, not west. And so I wanted to look at it differently in that perspective, and then I found that these villages of Ahmedabad have been living next to this site, and archaeology is largely, you know, grave robbing. Let's put it. And they knew these graves existed. No one asked them. So then I had access to the actual archive, which looked a bit like this. So it was a nice 1960s archive. It had little pieces of paper which told everybody had written their notes on it. And then I created a kind of imitation archive, and then I invited people over to sort out things which is their own heritage. You know, you can go around and look at amphoras which exist in that village, which look very much like the Greek amphoras. And then they started sorting through this, and they came up with their own observations. And one of the observations to this image of this jug, which they put together, was archaeological photographs do not contain the past or the object in its original state. They only contain a previous moment in the present, but fictionalized, an attempt to see spirits where there only remains.
I think that's a good note to end invoking the spirits. Thank you so much, Akshay, Kadambari, and Parag, and thank you all for listening. And I'm sure that there are other questions. I have parked some questions due to time, but I'm sure that the conversation will come around. Yeah, thank you so much.